The emergency room at Fort Bragg Medical Center was chaos. Blood shouting, wounded soldiers streaming in from a training accident. And in the middle of it all stood Sarah Mitchell, wearing scrubs that didn't fit quite right, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, moving with a calm that didn't match her civilian appearance.
"You there," Dr. Hamilton barked, pointing at Sarah as she knelt beside a critically wounded soldier. "Step away from my patient. This isn't a volunteer clinic."
Sarah didn't move. Her hands stayed steady, applying pressure to a severed artery, her eyes never leaving the soldier's face. "His femoral artery is compromised," she said quietly. "He'll bleed out in 3 minutes without intervention." The medical team laughed. A young resident smirked. "Listen, lady, we appreciate volunteers, but this is real medicine. Why don't you go fold some towels?" Sarah's fingers never shifted from the pressure point. "Doctor, with respect, I need hemostats and oneg blood, now."
"Security!"
Dr. Hamilton shouted.
"Remove this civilian from my ER immediately!"
That's when Sarah slowly rolled up her sleeve, revealing something that made the entire room go silent. 3 small tattoos lined her forearm, a medical caduceus, paratrooper wings, and barely visible beneath them, the Delta Force insignia. "Major Sarah Mitchell," she said calmly, still maintaining pressure on the artery. "Delta Force Combat Medic, 2012 to 2019. Now, can someone get me those hemostats? Or do you want to explain to his family why he died while we argued about credentials?" Hey, before we dive deeper into this incredible story, can you do something quick? Hit that like button, drop a comment below telling us what city you're watching from, and smash that subscribe button. Stories like this one hit deep, and your support keeps them coming. Let's connect and keep walking this path together. Foam. The hemostats appeared in Sarah's hands within seconds. The O-negative blood was being prepped before Dr. Hamilton could process what he'd just heard. But the room's attention was now split between the wounded soldier and the woman who'd just revealed she wasn't who anyone thought she was. Nurse Patricia Wells, a 20-year veteran of military medicine, stepped closer, her eyes fixed on Sarah's tattoos. "Delta Force doesn't take women," she said, her voice skeptical but less certain than before. Sarah's hands moved with surgical precision, clamping the artery and beginning the delicate work of temporary repair. "They didn't," she replied without looking up, "until they needed someone who could do this job in places no one else could reach." Dr. Hamilton was struggling to maintain his authority. "I don't care what unit you claim to be from. In my ER, I give the orders." Miss Sarah glanced up from her work, meeting his eyes directly. "Doctor, your patient's blood pressure is dropping. His pupils are dilating. You can assert your authority over my corpse if this soldier dies because you were more concerned about rank than saving lives." The words cut through the room's tension like a scalpel. Hamilton's face flushed. But he couldn't argue with the medical assessment. Sarah was right about everything. A young medical technician, Corporal Davis, pushed through the crowd, his tablet in hand. "I looked her up," he announced, his voice shaking slightly. "Major Sarah Mitchell, medical degree from Johns Hopkins, Special Forces medical training at Bragg, and—" He paused, his eyes widening as he read further. "Medal of Honor for actions in Syria, 2018. The room went dead quiet, except for the sounds of medical equipment and Sarah's steady work on the wounded soldier. Nurse Wells stepped back, her skepticism evaporating. "The Medal of Honor? For what?" Sarah didn't answer immediately. She was focused on stabilizing the soldier's condition, her movements economical and precise. Finally, she spoke without looking up. "For doing my job under fire."
But Corporal Davis was still reading from his template, his voice growing more amazed with each detail. "It says here she performed emergency surgery on 6 wounded soldiers during a 14-hour firefight, saved all 6 while under continuous enemy fire." Dr. Hamilton's clipboard slipped from his hands. That's impossible. No one operates for 14 hours straight under combat conditions. Sarah finally looked up from her patient, her work complete. The soldier's condition was stable, his color returning. "Doctor, with respect, you've never had to choose between losing teammates and finding out what's possible." A surgical nurse, Jennifer Lopez, who had been watching the entire exchange, stepped forward. "I remember that story," she said quietly. "It was all over the military medical journals. They called it the miracle of Damascus Base. But the report said the medic's identity was classified." Sarah was cleaning her hands, her movements methodical. Some operations require anonymity to protect the people involved. The hospital's chief medical officer, Colonel Morrison, had arrived during the commotion. He'd been observing from the back of the room, his face unreadable. Now he stepped forward, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed. "Major Mitchell," he said formally, "if you're really who you claim to be, why are you here in civilian clothes? Why aren't you in uniform?" Sarah faced him directly, her posture shifting slightly into something more military. "Sir, I'm currently on medical leave, PTSD and chronic pain from injuries sustained in the line of duty." Colonel Morrison studied her carefully. "And you came to our ER because I heard about the training accident on the scanner in my apartment. Multiple casualties, all hands needed. I came to help." The honesty of the answer seemed to hit everyone in the room. Here was a decorated war hero, struggling with her own demons, who had dropped everything to come help strangers because people were hurt. Dr. Hamilton cleared his throat, his earlier arrogance completely gone. "Major, I apologize for how we treated you. Your intervention saved that soldier's life." Sarah nodded once, acknowledging the apology without making a big deal of it. "He'll need surgery within the hour to repair the damage properly. The clamp is temporary." As if summoned by her words, the surgical team arrived to transport the patient. As they wheeled him away, the young soldier's eyes found Sarah's. "Thank you," he whispered. Sarah smiled, the first real emotion she'd shown since arriving. "Get well, soldier." The ER began to return to its normal rhythm, but the atmosphere had changed completely. The medical staff moved around Sarah with a mixture of respect and curiosity, no longer seeing a civilian volunteer, but a decorated war hero who had chosen to serve even when she didn't have to. Nurse Wells approached Sarah cautiously. "Major, if you don't mind me asking, what happened to you? Why medical leave?" Sarah's expression became more guarded, but she answered honestly. "Roadside bomb in Kandahar 2019 killed 2 of my team. I was pulled out with severe injuries and diagnosed with PTSD shortly after." The room went quiet again. These were medical professionals who understood the weight of trauma, both physical and psychological. Dr. Hamilton stepped forward, his voice gentler than anyone had heard it all day. "Major, would you consider staying? We could use someone with your expertise on our trauma team." Sarah shook her head slowly. "Doctor, I appreciate the offer, but I'm not ready to return to full duty. Today was an exception." "Then what about consulting?
Colonel Morrison suggested. Part-time, flexible schedule, teaching our people some of the techniques you learned in Special Forces medicine. Sarah considered this for a moment. I'll think about it. As she prepared to leave, Corporal Davis approached her hesitantly. Major, could I ask you something? Sarah nodded. In Syria, when you operated for 14 hours straight, how did you do it? How did you keep going? Sarah's answer was simple but profound. Because giving up wasn't an option. When people are counting on you, you find strength you didn't know you had. ... She picked up her civilian jacket and headed toward the exit. As she walked through the ER, every medical professional she passed nodded respectfully. Some whispered, "Thank you for your service." Others simply watched in amazement as a living legend walked quietly out of their lives. But Sarah's story wasn't over. Word of what happened in the ER spread quickly through Fort Bragg. By evening, social media was buzzing with second-hand accounts of the mystery medic who had saved a soldier's life and then revealed herself to be a Medal of Honor recipient. A military blogger picked up the story and published a detailed account of Sarah's service record. The post went viral within hours, shared by thousands of veterans who had heard whispers of the Damascus base operation but never knew the medic's identity. The attention was exactly what Sarah had been trying to avoid. 3 days later, she received a call from the Pentagon. The voice on the other end was polite but insistent. "Major Mitchell, the Secretary of Defense, would like to speak with you." The conversation was brief. The Secretary had a proposition. Would she consider returning to active duty as an instructor at the Special Forces Medical Training Center, part-time with full accommodation for a PTSD treatment, and a chance to train the next generation of combat medics? Sarah asked for time to think about it. That evening she sat in her small apartment, staring at the Medal of Honor that she kept in a simple wooden box. She'd never displayed it, never talked about it. It represented both the best and worst day of her life, saving 6 soldiers while losing 2 others she couldn't help. Her phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. "Major Mitchell, this is PFC Rodriguez from the ER yesterday, the soldier you saved. I wanted you to know I'm going to be fine. The doctor said you gave me back my life. I don't know how to thank you." Sarah stared at the message for a long time. Then she picked up her phone and called the Pentagon back. "This is Major Mitchell," she said when the Secretary's aide answered. "Tell him I'll take the position." 6 months later, Sarah stood in front of a class of Special Forces medical students at Fort Bragg. She wore her dress uniform for the first time in years, her Medal of Honor visible alongside her other decorations. "Combat medicine isn't about being a hero," she told the young medics. "It's about being there when someone needs you most. It's about finding strength you didn't know you had and using it to bring people home." One student raised his hand. "Major, what's the most important thing you can teach us?" Sarah smiled, thinking back to that chaotic day in the ER when she'd chosen to help despite her own struggles. "That healing isn't just about medical technique," she said. "Sometimes it's about showing up when no one expects you to. Sometimes it's about being willing to serve even when you're not wearing the uniform." The students nodded, understanding that they were learning from someone who had lived every word she spoke. After class, Sarah walked through the same ER where her story had become public. The medical staff greeted her warmly, some calling her Major, others simply nodding with respect. Dr. Hamilton approached her, looking embarrassed. "Major Mitchell, I owe you more than an apology. You taught all of us something important that day." Sarah smiled. "What's that, Doctor?" "That sometimes the person who looks least like a hero is exactly the hero you need."
As Sarah left the hospital that day, she passed a new patient being wheeled into the ER, a young soldier injured in training. For a moment, her PTSD symptoms flared, the sounds, the chaos, the memories of other soldiers she'd tried to save. But then she saw the fear in the young soldier's eyes, and something inside her steadied. She wasn't the broken woman who had struggled to find her purpose after leaving active duty. She was Major Sarah Mitchell, Delta Force medic, Medal of Honor recipient, and teacher. She had found her way home. If this story moved you, please hit that subscribe button and leave a comment below. Tell us about a time when someone surprised you with their hidden strength or unexpected heroism. And don't forget to let us know what city you're watching from. We love connecting with our amazing community.